Right. Hey everyone, thanks for joining in for this edition of Programmers Week. And let me introduce myself. I'm Sharath, and I've been working in Cognizant Softvision for the last 4+ years, and it's been a good journey for me. Basically, I'm part of a QA community working on different technologies, both in automation, database, API, and it's been a good journey for me so far. Okay, coming back to my presentation for this edition of Programmers Week, I have picked up this Cucumber and SpecFlow. How do they stack up, or how do they measure? I'm quite excited to present this, and I hope if you have any queries, you can definitely ping me in the chat, and I'll be quite happy to answer them. Okay, so Cucumber and SpecFlow. Let me just share my agenda. Okay, if we talk about Cucumber or SpecFlow, it has to start with the parent of all these, that's BDD. So we'll try to understand BDD and what is Cucumber, features and advantages of Cucumber, and come to SpecFlow and its advantages, features, and I just try to compare these two, how exactly when we can go for Cucumber, when we can go for SpecFlow. Yep. All right, so first thing, what is this BDD Cucumber? What is SpecFlow? Okay, if we just turn around, the first thing that we realize that we are working on currently is actually most of the projects basically these days work on this concept of behavioral driven development. I mean, we few years back it was different. I feel we were working on other waterfall models where just the tech stack people were involved most of the time, little bit of interaction with the client, that's it. But it's all changed now, with the advent of behavior driven development. We have a set of people, not just technical. There are business folks, there are product owners, there are clients, everyone's involved in it, and it's basically like a collaboration among all these members. We are all part of the same team. So this is one of the feature of BDD. Within this BDD, it encourages team to communicate and formalize a shared understanding of how the application should behave. you know a product owner has his perspective, tester thinks differently, and a developer, he has his own technical things going in his mind. But all these has to be, you know, uh, product or covered within in our scope of the project or product. That requires great sense of collaboration. Okay, so this coming again to BDD, it's basically a functional. It binds the functional requirement of an application with the source code. We as a tech people, we think in terms of the code, the testing stuff, the automation stuff. This is what we usually think. But from a product owner or a business perspective, that's not what's inside the application. They're not too worried. They are more concerned about what exactly they are expecting, whether it has been developed. How would they get to understand it? It's basically through the functional requirement. But the functional requirement, whatever they have provided, how we would be able to translate that into code, that's something we are involved in. So these two help us with the help of BDD. Again, in BDD, the focus is on development, on the behavior of the system we wish to implement. The focus definitely is on what we want to implement and what our product owner or our stakeholder has provided. They won't provide us any code or anything, right? It's just their a piece of, it could be a simple plain English requirement. That's what we want to convert. So with the help of this BDD, it enhances the communication between the technical team, product owners, and the stakeholders. In doing so, it focuses on development onto the behavior of the system. Basically, whatever we want to implement, that as a product owner, they provide in English, or in terms of business driven development, which from technical perspective, we can call it as gherkin or jerkin. I mean, there is a bit of conflict with how we pronounce, but I'll go with gherkin. So, okay, that's coming to BDD. But when we talk about Cucumber, this is again part of the BDD family that it's been around for a few years now. Basically, it's not like Cucumber is was recently introduced. It's been there since quite a few years. It has evolved, but we can't deny the fact that it has brought in quite a positive atmosphere within the team. Okay, how exactly this Cucumber works? What exactly it is? Cucumber, it's basically a testing framework. Yeah, it supports business driven development, and it acts as a bridge between the business and technical language. I mean, if we notice, there's always a gap. If I as a tester or I as a developer want to speak with a tester or a developer, we go inside the product, try to analyze it via code, or you know the whatever feature we had implemented, we analyze it that way. But when it comes to a business team, business analyst, or a product owner, they are not too worried about what we have inside. They are more concerned about the feature, whether it was implemented properly. So with the help of this Cucumber, it defines application behavior in plain English. Anyone can understand it, isn't it? So with this, whatever the feature is present, they are ready to portray that. Whatever the feature they have provided, whether we are able to implement it, that's what it's all about. A few of the features of Cucumber, I can say, it can be used to test code, or automate using any of these: Ruby, Java, C Sharp, Python, any of these languages. I mean, I as a automation engineer would have worked on Java or C Sharp something, but there are teams, there are folks, who wouldn't have worked on Java or C Sharp, but they would be an expert in Python. So for them, it's always handy. It's not just, it's not like we expect only someone who is good at Java or C Sharp can handle Cucumber. So it has provided this option. And within this Cucumber, we have different concepts like a feature file, step definition, all those stuff. To begin with, let me share it. So, this is where it all starts, isn't it? This is something we are quite familiar with currently. As a BA or as a product owner, they set the expectation here. This is basically what they want to achieve. So this can be captured within Cucumber using a feature file. This is something that's present in Cucumber. But let me I can take an example of Cucumber in Eclipse. Okay, inside Eclipse, it has its own Cucumber plugin. We can just install that plugin within Cucumber and add a couple of Cucumber jars. Once we are done with that, we can create a feature file. This is basically the feature file that I was trying to mention. This feature file is like a plain English gherkin terminology that's mentioned by a BA or a product owner. They give the requirement in this particular format. Given what exactly is this given? It's basically like a precondition. It could be an application login or navigating the precondition. Basically, that's what we would like to address in this given. And when it comes to and, it could be add an existing condition, add another condition to the already existing one. And we talk about when, it's like an action, what action we want to perform on that. And the next part is then, this is basically used to describe the expected outcome, or whatever result we want to achieve with it. This is what we usually, get from our BA or a product owner. But when we, as a technical folks, we want to develop or automate a feature, this is uh, this is where we want to achieve that, basically the step definition part. And the next comes the test runner. I can go to it in a couple of in the next slide. But the basic, how we actually convert this feature into a definition and how we want to run it, this is all from the technical perspective. Although we have a product owner or a BA, business folks in the team, they are not worried about these things. They want us to achieve what they have provided here, isn't it? That's how it works for them. So, for each of those step in a feature, we can add a definition. It could be, a definition would be in the form of, definition could be in the form of a Java file, for example. If we are working, I mean, if we are talking about Java Cucumber concepts, this is where the feature that we have is converted into a definition. Once we have our code implemented in this definition, we have to execute that part, isn't it? So for that, Cucumber has provided a separate runner class that we can use. Again, within that runner class, there are few stuffs that we have to mandatorily mention that can be achieved with a Cucumber option. Basically, we can provide the path of the feature, where exactly the feature is, and also the step definition. What other features can a Cucumber provide? Okay, here's one more, that Cucumber provides. It's like data tables. We know that if we talk about registration to any of the websites, there could be few users who would like to register for the website. So it's not like one set of data, there are multiple set of data involved here. So that can also be, if we want to register with multiple set of data, like A wants to register, B, C wants to register with all the set of conditions, that can be achieved with the help of this data table. And what about tags? Tags, it provides a way to organize your scenario or execution that you want to perform within your feature file. I mean, we might be, I can take an example here wherein, we would be having we would have worked on a new enhancement, and that would be moved to the environment that is just before production. So since it moved to a next environment, we want to have a smoke test on that particular environment. So how we want to achieve, our product owner comes up and tells, hey, guys, please run a smoke test on the latest build. I want to understand how it's behaving on this environment. So with the help of tags, what we can do, since a feature file can have multiple scenarios and number of scenarios, there are, I mean, have 10 scenarios. We don't want to run all those scenarios as part of smoke test, isn't it? So in that case, what we can do, we can tag it, that particular scenario, whatever we want to test, we can tag it as a smoke test. But it's not just limited to smoke test. If we want to tag it, we can tag it as a, for regression, if we tag multiple scenarios for regression, we can achieve it with the help of these tags. Okay, next one is hooks. I mean, again, if we want to uh, run a run a particular test, there would be a precondition attached to it, or a post condition, what we want to do once it is run, or a precondition like logging into database. We want to fetch some data from DB, setting up the database. These are all parts of hook. Before running our script, we want to run another script. If we provide these hooks before or after, we can achieve it with the help of these hooks. So I tried to bring out few of the features of Cucumber, but it has its own advantages, disadvantages. So again, this is one such example that I was trying to mention about a data table. Okay, let's try to understand what the advantages that we think of for Cucumber with a few of these nodes. It supports different languages, basically Java, .NET, Ruby, which is quite flexible, and it's also open source. So that's one thing most people look out for, whether there is any license attached to it additional. That's like an additional override. Cucumber, it acts as a bridge between the business and technical language with strong collaboration, isn't it? Since uh, our a BA or a PO, they may not be aware of the code, or they may not be technical folks. More often than not, it's the case. But we still have them working along with the technical folks, and they have an understanding of what exactly is going on with the help of these feature, like the feature that we have in Cucumber. And it promotes readability, basically. Since Cucumber supports this Gherkin, it's readable. Anyone can understand it. Any disadvantages that we can think of? There could be few. If there's a short project, we just want to develop, test, we want to automate or not, that could be decided. But if you want to just provide an end result to it, I mean, Cucumber may not be that best option here, because it does take some time. So since we are running on time constraint, it could be avoided for those kind of short projects. Working on program can be time consuming, since it pays attention to detail. So again, it could be time consuming. And since we are talking about collaboration with Cucumber, we would want the stakeholders, the product owners, to be regularly involved in all the meetings, because they are the one who provide a freeze on what we on the requirements. So this is kind of a disadvantage. Okay, coming to this, since I mentioned about Cucumber and SpecFlow, let's try to understand how or what this SpecFlow is. Okay, again, this is also part of the BDD family. Only difference I feel is it's basically a part of the .NET world. This is something that's part of .NET. Again, it is also similar to what we have in Cucumber. It allows to write specification in human readable Gherkin format, similar to what we achieve in Cucumber. But with the features of SpecFlow, it's like it's integrated with Visual Studio IDE. I mean, it's like a NuGet package that we have, that we want to set up in our Visual Studio, similar to what we call as plugin in Cucumber Eclipse world. Here we use a NuGet package. We just add that package to our project. Similar to Cucumber, this is again written in simple English language, and the code is built around it. It has the same keywords that we have in Cucumber, like scenario, given, when, then, all these formats. So just with this pictorial representation, I wanted to showcase that this is where we have the Gherkin language, or the feature file that we have in SpecFlow. This is again all inside the Visual Studio. Since we are talking about the .NET world, it's all about Visual Studio. Within this Visual Studio, we have this feature file. Basically, the feature file that we have inside a SpecFlow is the first step for the SpecFlow. This is where we write the scenario, or it contains mainly the scenarios or different use cases in a given when then format. It could be written by a BA or a product owner, or if it is a QA for automation, it could be written by him to showcase whatever automation was achieved. So when it comes to SpecFlow features, it's again, it's the next, after the feature file, the next one is the step definition file. It's basically converting a feature into a definition. It's basically a piece of code with a pattern attached to it, or in other words, a C# method in a class with an annotation. That annotation is nothing but our feature that we had mentioned in our feature file. This definition file, it's like it links the definition to all the matching steps in the feature file using the generate option. This option is available in Visual Studio. Once we generate that, there would be a set of methods implemented as part of the feature. So once we have generated that, within the feature file, whatever we have added as a scenario, there would be a slight change in color. That means, these features are linked to that particular definition. In the definition file, it's basically the C# code that is implemented as a method. So if we want to run a test in a SpecFlow, it has its own test explorer inside the Visual Studio. Using the test explorer, we can run the selected test or multiple test, add up and run them. So, when it comes to Cucumber, how we were doing it, we were using a runner class for our test run. Here we have a test explorer. Again, within this SpecFlow, we have the same features like data tables, hooks, similar to what we discussed in Cucumber. Coming to advantages and disadvantages of SpecFlow, the advantages: maximum participation, similar to what we have in Cucumber. It has its own. It encourages participation of all team members, including manual testers. While it could be creation of automation test cases. Since it binds the test specification to the application code, basically whatever, if tomorrow one of our higher ups might come and ask us the coverage, what all we have covered. With the help of this SpecFlow, we can better showcase it. It's better for long-term projects since there are a lot of maintenance involved, enhancements within a project. If it's all going on, it's quite a good option for long-term project, and it has high visibility since it's understandable. High visibility, basically I'm talking about uh, the working concepts that we have in SpecFlow, because of which other folks can understand. Can we think of any disadvantages here? Hmm, again, similar to Cucumber, yeah, it's not okay to have it for a short-term project. And another limitation with this SpecFlow, I would say, is it's just bind it's bound within this .NET. We have this as a package, NuGet package within Visual Studio, so one has to be quite familiar with C Sharp. But when it comes to Cucumber, it has its own options. It could be C Sharp, .NET, it could be C Sharp, Java, Ruby. Again, similar to Cucumber, it involves different stakeholders to be involved in the meetings for regular discussion, all these stuffs. So with a few of these notes about Cucumber and SpecFlow, we might be wondering, it has its own advantages, it has its own disadvantages, and why should we go for SpecFlow? Why should we go for uh, Cucumber? I mean, I can take my example for that. I was involved in one of those projects. It had Cucumber BDD implementation as part of automation, and it was all going smoothly. At a later stage, there we moved out to another part of another module. Okay, so they were more keen on Microsoft partnership. They were more involved with these Microsoft products. So when I got to move to that particular project, it was different. It's not like when we talked about these Cucumber concept being implemented there, do we have any option with any of these Microsoft product? If that is the case, we better go ahead with it. So that's when we got to know that, yeah, these Microsoft products also provide with the help of this SpecFlow provide the similar features. So it's not like they are Cucumber is better than SpecFlow, or SpecFlow is better than Cucumber. They have their own advantages and disadvantages. It's just that the depends on the client, basically, who wants to have what. So that's what I wanted to bring it up with this particular discussion. And ultimately, whether we go for Cucumber or SpecFlow, it's all part of BDD. And like most of the folks would have known, a client or a stakeholder doesn't expect Cucumber or SpecFlow. Their question would be, okay, cool, you would have done all these steps. So when are we going live? That's what they would be more worried about, isn't it? Yeah. With this short presentation, this is what I wanted to capture. I'm happy to take up any questions, any queries.